Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the 9 to 5 Musician. Today, I'm so excited to be starting our Musician Memoir series, which I hope will turn into a wonderful set of collaborations with musicians and creatives alike. Today, for our first interview, we are talking to violinist, chamber musician, and pedagogue LIUBOMYR SENYSHYN, who is originally from Ukraine and immigrated to the US about 5 years ago now. So we'll be talking to him about his journey since moving here, also his career thus far, and lots of other different topics. So let's go ahead and welcome LIUBOMYR into our chat. Hi, how are you doing?
Hello, Maggie. Thank you. I'm good. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me today on your channel. It's a huge pleasure, and I'm so excited to be uh, a part of your memoirs.
Of course, we're delighted to have you here. So we have lots of fun topics to talk about today, but just before we get into those heavier things, can you give everyone sort of a current update on where you are, what you're up to lately, and what sorts of projects you're currently doing?
Sure. I'm currently based in Boston, Massachusetts, and as we all know, today it's the Sunday, August 22nd, and I'm supposed to actually play the concert tonight, and it got canceled because of the hurricane. So now currently I'm in my studio in Boston, and I am very being excited and so grateful to have this opportunity instead of playing the concert, being interviewing in your channel. So yeah, that's what was my plans for this weekend.
Can you tell us if that concert has been rescheduled? So if the listeners want to check in or tune in for the follow up.
Sure. Yeah, well, we rescheduled that concert for September 19th, the 3 p.m. EST time. And if you're around Boston area, please join us. We would be thrilled. It's going to be actually our first concert playing after 18 months for in-person audience, and we are very, very excited to bring music to live performances.
Yes, it has been a long year and a half now for everyone, but for musicians. So we'll leave the link for the Eventbrite down below in the description. So if you want to purchase tickets, if you're in Boston, you can do so. Or if you want to just donate to support LIUBOMYR and his trio, then they would love that. So we're going to get started with some questions. So first one is very simple, which is how did you start playing music and why did you choose the violin specifically?
Oh, thank you for asking me this question. Yeah, it was a very interesting story. I was in kindergarten, and I was, I think, at the age of 5 or 6, and the teachers, I think it was violin duo, and they came to us, and gave us a duo concert, and I remember the day I came back home, and I was like, Mom, I want to learn the violin. It sounded so wonderful, so beautiful, and super cool. And since my father used to be a musician, and he looked at my mom and said, "Oh no, no, it's not happening." So they were kind of against this, and I actually begged them for a little bit, to maybe not for a little bit, for a while actually, and I convinced them to get me the violin and get me sign up for the lessons. Yeah.
Great. So you really were enchanted by the sound of the violin.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask because I know that you started playing violin when you were very little. And of course, being a musician, it's a long journey, right? So we go through a lot of different phases of what we like to do and what we're interested in. So, can you tell everyone, was there sort of a turning point as you started playing after a few years, maybe that you felt like something clicked that you knew that you wanted to be a musician in a more long term sense?
Yeah. Sure. Thank you for asking this. Yeah, I did. Music and some other activities like a lot of other kids probably, and the I grew up in Ukraine, and we don't do a lot of activities, so we concentrate on something and trying to get better at one or two things. So I also did ballroom dancing, and it was a funny story. My mom called me in one day when I lost my partner, and she was like, "Okay, let me talk to you." And I was like, "Oh my god, it sounds so serious." And what did I do? And she was like, "Okay, so look, as a dancer, you cannot be on the stage when you're getting older, but as a performer, as a violinist, you can play until even 70 or something." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds very wise." And I was like 13, and it was a very tough decision for me. So I'm sort of switched my direction from the age of 13 to really, really focus on music. And it didn't mean that I will be a musician. In even that time, I was considering to be a musician, but I was very, very, very dedicated, and that was my turning point when I was like, I I would like to practice. I wasn't forced to be practice, or my parents did not, kind of need to come up with some other ideas or tricks, to bring me to the practicing, or just yeah. So that was my point when I was actually going to the instrument and picking up the instrument on my own. And more actually, I was discovering my instrument more. I was involved in music, and more I was falling in love in music in general, not only with the violin, but in general with the music. Yeah. So that's my story.
So you mentioned 13.
Yeah.
That makes me think a little bit about like maybe we can talk quickly about the differences in sort of the education system here, or like when you think about those things, because I think that typically here students when they're in school, when you get to high school, which here is about 14, I would say no one's quite pressuring you yet to kind of know what you want to do, maybe closer to when you're graduating. Of course, they want you to have an idea when you're going into college what you want to study, but 13 is quite young. Can you explain a little bit about like how you went to music school, because I know it's quite different than the model here.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what your experience was in Ukraine studying music as a child?
Yeah. So in Ukraine and in general in Europe, and particularly in Eastern Europe, we go to music school basically every day, and the music it's very, very affordable for people who live there. And I was going to music school 5 days per week. So, for instance, I some days, I should be honest, I was not looking forward to go to the music school. But now I truly appreciate that. So, for instance, on Monday I would go and have my private lesson with my teacher. On Tuesday I would go and have my solfege class. On Wednesday I would go and have my music theory class. On Wednesday, on Thursday I would have another solo private class, and on Friday we would have a violin ensemble class. And and when you get older, that's was happening basically when I was a little, like from the age of 7 I was already in the music school basically every day, every single day. And it started with a small amount of time, and after, when you grow, you have to choose the second instrument, or you can choose violin ensemble plus the orchestra, and they teaching you how to start playing in the orchestra from the early age. So the model is very, very working, and it's it's you don't have to actually practice so much because you're involved in music so much, so you're improving, I would say, so fast. So I really, really like that model. But there are, like, everywhere there are some pluses and minuses. That model, what I like about the being in the States and about my students, that we don't have that luxury to have music lessons every day here, but we give to the students sort of like this independency, and they actually become independent, and they can practice from early age, by themselves, and they don't have to have this guidance. So they're more independent. So because I did not learn how to practice till, it's I should say till like 18 or something, because every time someone would tell me or will practice with me. So I think it's not, that again, it's every time it should be the balance. And I'm so grateful that I moved to the States from Europe, from Eastern Europe. From I was born in Eastern Europe. After I lived a little bit in Europe and tour in Europe. And yeah, so now having all of this method, it's very, very helpful to be a teacher and to deliver this to your students.
That's great. So I just wanted to quickly make a note for those of us who are watching. I think your audio is a little bit like behind. I'm just going to pause it for a second to see if we can catch up because I don't want it to be so offset like that. Okay. I think we're okay now. I think there's just a lag on your end. Um, can you say something quickly? Just say hi.
Hi.
Okay, I think it's a little bit better now. Okay, I just wanted to get caught up. So thank you for that. That's really interesting because that's a completely different model than we have here. You're right. We only have, and we're both teachers as well, so we only get to see most of our students once a week for a very short amount of time. So to have that experience where you're going every day, almost like regular school, that's pretty interesting. I mean, of course, here we have music, like general music class, that I would say I think students get to go to like maybe once or twice a week at school. So there's a little bit of an additional exposure to music, but certainly nowhere near what you're describing. So that's very interesting. Um, and yeah, that's a completely different model. So moving forward a little bit in your life. So after you've been in music school for a little bit, what was your like first major job that you would consider like a true musician job, and how did it change your life at that point?
Oh, that's a very tricky question, because I do remember it was very embarrassing. And so I was a student in the conservatory, and I think I was the first year of my undergrad studies in Ukraine, and I got an opportunity to be a member of the quite famous chamber orchestra, and they were going to Italy on a tour to play 20 to 25 concerts, and I was 17 years old or something. And I got this opportunity, and of course, as a student, we don't have as much time, to do a lot of other things. So, I was preparing, but of lack of the experience, and playing with the professional orchestra members. That was a little bit challenging for me. So I got the gig, and I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm seeing all of this cool, fantastic musicians going on the bus. And we came to Italy, and first rehearsal, Aaron, it's incredible how well they know their parts, because they have been playing for like 20, 30 years together, this small chamber orchestra. So I felt I'm so behind, and I was literally coming back to my hotel room and practicing in the bathroom with a mute till like 2 3 a.m. to at least catch up. But believe me, it was so hard to even catch up, because the level was so high. And I felt like that's something that I would like to achieve. And uh, and I was actually not disappointed that I cannot play like them. I was actually inspired that there are so many things that I can learn from all of those musicians. And actually, they inspired me, and they work with the different conductors every day. We played so much music, like my sight reading went up, and that's and I still was getting paid, even though I don't think I was supposed to, you know, because I I thought that I was doing a good job, but compared to them, I guess, you know but again, I'm so grateful to have this kind of opportunity. That was my first professional gig, and you see, I got the gig, and it already was like a broad trip tour with a professional orchestra. So that was a little bit stressful, but I learned so much from that trip. Yeah.
So I have a few questions about that because that's a really I mean, I've never had that kind of experience. So as a pianist, right, we always play by ourselves. So playing in a group setting like that, traveling, making maybe friends, but just like relationships. And I think, what you said about going into an environment with musicians who are older and more experienced with you and having that outlook of being inspired by them and not, like running away from it or giving up is really, really important. Like it sounds silly, like, oh, I was locking myself in the bathroom, but sometimes that's really what you have to do. Is It's not like a glamorous, thing always, especially when you're trying to, bump up to the next level, and it can be very intimidating. Did you know anyone in the orchestra that you were able to kind of talk to or ask advice from? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I knew three people that or two three people. Yeah, and actually they were so supportive. They actually guide me and teach me how to behave in an orchestra and how to play when you really don't know the full repertoire. They did not teach me how to fake. I don't want to say that they were teaching me right away to how to fake, but they were teaching me how to behave yourself in the orchestra when you have so much music to learn and it needs to happen over the night. So sometimes we would get it was like we had this set repertoire for like 20 concerts, and sometimes it was like surprises. Uh, like for Christmas, it's a surprise. Some very famous conductor would come from Milan and say, "There you go, we have this amazing flutist comes from La Scala, and he will play the flute concerto that I wrote." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And again, I was locking myself in the bathroom with the mute and working very hard. And what I want to say that it was what basically 13 years ago, and I was working hard, and now my sight reading improved so much. So, and I'm so actually fortunate that the colleagues in that orchestra, they were much older, like 40s, 50s, and they were so supportive. So that's I actually was the main switch, also one of the switches that I was like, wow, musicians actually, they are so supportive and they support each other and they show that you can get better, because not in every profession you can find this vulnerability from other people. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
that's true. And I think if you're not in the performance art scene, I mean, I think there's still a lot of hyper competitiveness within what we do. But you're right, there are actually more people than you think that want you to succeed. And, we all, if you're striving towards being a high level classical musician, there is kind of a formula for how to get there and things that you need to do and that foundation and having people ahead of you, even if it's kind of funny. You feel like you have a lot of friends that are much older than you. Like your teachers become your friends because they really understand what it takes to get there and they want you to succeed. So that's really nice. And how long did you play in that orchestra?
oh, it was a project. It was my first project, and I think it was 1 month, and that's actually it was my first time traveling to Italy, and now actually Italy, that's the actually Italy, it's the country that I'm visiting actually every year. I fall in love with that country when I was 17, 12 years ago, and since then I only until this year. This is my actually first year that I missed being in Italy, and since then, every year I need to be at least once in Italy.
So
Yeah,
that original gig was what took you to Italy.
yeah.
But then you mentioned you keep going back. So what is it that keeps bringing you back to that country as a musician?
So I was in the different music projects, and as well as I just recently got an offer to join the Cremona International Music Academy, where I was a student of my teacher. And that's actually also another story that it's a long story. However, I was as a student coming to Cremona, I think 5 years ago, and now I'm associate faculty there, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity too. And it's just incredible place to create music.
Yeah,
And it
and I
just
can I can verify that because I've also been there myself, and it's a
it's
wonderful
true.
place to be. And yeah, it's just very inspiring and a wonderful place to be. So speaking about moving around and going different places as a musician, of course, you grew up and spent the majority of your life in Ukraine. And now you live in the United States, and you moved here about 5 years ago. So, can you tell us sort of why you decided to come here and what that process looked like?
Yeah, I thank you for asking this. I I would like to start with the uh, to all of the people who are abroad, and not only people who lives here. Do not you know uh, feel hesitant, or do not feel scared or afraid to try new things, and especially going to a different country and learn a different culture, language, whatsoever, like etc. It's pretty fascinating, but the reward that you're getting in the end, it's I cannot compare with anything else that you have. So I grew up in Ukraine. I finished the conservatory there, and after I got into this Ukrainian Austrian symphony orchestra, which was another part of my life, where we played around 140, 130, 130 concerts per year, which was fascinating in one of the best concert halls. That's where actually I fall in love with the orchestra music. And the first year it was very, very stressful, I should say, because the amount of music that you need to learn is just mind blowing. And yeah, so I used to work there for 3 years, and after 3 years, I was like, okay, I would like to even move somewhere forward. And I reach out. I was on a plane, I think, or at the airport. I think in some country like Norway or Sweden. I don't remember. And I was looking just randomly at schools in the States, and I found the teacher that actually I met 12 years, or no, maybe even more, when I was like 14, 16 years ago in Ukraine, when he came and gave a master class. And I was like, wow, this is the same teacher. And I was like, wow, why don't I reach out to him? Maybe he still remembers me after like 15 years. Yeah. So I reached out to him, and he said, of course I do remember you, because when I met him, I played it for him, and I was very, very afraid, shaking whatsoever. Yeah. And he right away invited me to come to the States to be a part of his studio. And unfortunately, Ukraine is not one of the richest country in the world, so it was a little bit challenging for me and for my family to afford to come to the States right away. So that's why I'm so grateful and fortunate to get a job in this very prestigious orchestra, so I can save a little bit. And yeah, and I explained everything to him, and he said, why don't you try to play an audition? And I did not come for the live audition. I submit everything and video by video, and I got a very, very high scholarship, and just left my job and started from the beginning as a student again. So it's never late to be a student again. So because especially with the music, I think we're gonna study, and that's what gonna keeps us young. Study music until basically the rest of your life. That's something that I love about music, and it's something magical actually, that you never stop learning about anything in the music.
So that's well, for those who have never moved to another country, which I haven't either. Of course, that's such an intricate and emotional experience in so many ways. And Lubomir and I went to the same school. We overlapped, what, 2 years during my master's, and he was doing a more final degree past his master's. And the school that we went to specifically is very supportive, I would say, of international students, and I think does a pretty phenomenal job of representing many different places from around the world. And financially supporting those students to come over and have a different experience and have a lot of opportunities here, which I think is um, fantastic. Um, but it's so much work for you guys. So can you, outside of what your institution did for you, can you explain a little bit about like what kind of preparation you personally had to do? Like you mentioned, you worked in an orchestra to save money to move here. So what kinds of things did you feel like you personally had to overcome or work really hard at to even be able to step into our country?
Yeah, that's the very very good questions, especially for all the people abroad
I'm so
who.
sorry. I'm just going to pause you for 1 second because it's doing this lagging thing and I really want people to hear what you're saying. Okay, let's give it a second. Okay, I think we're all set. Okay, so
Hello, hello. Hi. Yeah. Can you hear me, Maggie?
I can hear you. Yes, it's just that your video is unfortunately behind your audio.
Maybe it's gonna be better when we actually.
Okay, now
Uh,
now it's good, I think. Okay,
okay. Thank you.
trying to go ahead.
So my tip to all of the people who would like to come here from abroad, please do not be afraid to try something new and learn English before you will come to this country. So don't be like me when I came here and I had my first class. I was like, okay, I don't understand. I didn't understand anything, and my mind was like, okay, like melted, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna continue like this because I literally did not understand anything after 1.5 hours sitting in a class. So because everything's so fast and you cannot process. You have this culture shock. You have this, you know, everything's new for you. It's basically living upside down life. Yeah. So learn the language and try to find the ways how you can get a higher scholarship. You can apply for different funds, or you can apply for scholarship for your government. You can just try to find so many ways. Try to find the sponsors to people who really, really like to support your craft, and trying to find the ways how you can get more support before you will come here. Because when you come in here, there are so many things that uh, will be unexpectedly surprising for you, like the health insurance here, it's very very expensive in this country. You need to pay for it as a international student whatsoever. It's There are so many other things, fees, that you're just the rents, everything else, that just save as much as you can and try to find the ways how people who really believe in you can support you or become your sponsors as well. Yeah. And don't be afraid to, you don't have to have a perfect English. But when you come in here, try to surround you with the international people who only speak English. Actually, I was very, very lucky that Longy School of Music, that the school that we both went with Maggie, in that time they did not have any Ukrainian students, so my only choice was speaking English. So that's actually how I learned the language very very fast. Because if you're gonna surround yourself with the people from the same country, you will, believe me or not, you will speak the same language, and you will learn English very very kind of on a very chill pace. So I would highly recommend you to surround you to make as many as possible American friends who actually gonna support you and who will help you to learn English very fast, like in the 3 months or so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know even when I first met you, so I met Lubomir because um, I wanted to learn how to play the violin a little bit. And I was luckily sort of not gifted, but when my teacher was letting me borrow one of his old violins, and I knew Lubomir played in the orchestra at Longy, and he was a mutual friend of my best friend. And I just remember sort of begging him to teach me a few lessons because I wanted to understand the instrument more. And even when I met you then, yeah, your English was, not spectacular, but we didn't have any problems to communicate. And I think, like, one thing that always has like impressed me about you as a person and a musician is that you're just very not afraid to do something, and I think that's a really like encouraging way to live your life, and also be like as an international student here, that don't be afraid to like step out of your comfort zone and do things that you wouldn't normally do, because especially if you're amongst other international students, and even students who are, home to this country, everyone's kind of going through those same experiences, and you'd be surprised, like everyone really wants to go through those things together and is very open. So that's really cool. So my next question is a little bit pivoting towards current life more, which is, how would you say that COVID and that whole time period, how did it influence or sort of affect your goals as a musician, or your idea of what it means to be a musician in the modern sense?
Yeah, thank you for the kind words before. Thank you. It was so nice of you. The COVID, as probably you know, it affect every single gig industry and especially music. And I shouldn't lie, it was very challenging for all of musicians, and a lot of my friends, probably your friends too, they you know a lot of them even changed their profession. They truly became a just they pursue different degree or something. Yeah, so it was very hard to stay focused and inspired yourself during those 18 or basic almost 2 years. But on another hand, it gave us musicians so many new different ways and perspectives in our life. Like for instance, you can now you can literally study with anyone across the whole world. Yeah, you can take lessons online. Yeah, we all learn how to teach online and how to learn online. And also something with the technology, we all know now how to record yourself. And also it gave us time to really think what is music about, and which kind of music you want to pursue, and which kind of musician you would like to be in the future. It honestly it Well, that time it wasn't fun, but now actually I appreciate having some extra time to really be honest with yourself and ask yourself what is the most important thing for you in your life as a musician, and what you would like to focus on. Because before, we were living, it's in my personal opinion, we're living in a society when it runs so fast, and if you're like a little bit off, you feeling like, oh, I don't belong in this society. And now when everyone had a little bit more time to think about this, now we truly like, I truly enough want to have an incredible studio of students and give my all of my knowledge to them. And it doesn't matter if they didn't have to be me in the future, they didn't have to be professional musicians, but I want them to be able to play music without any problems. That's something that I learned, and I was very focusing over the COVID. And yeah, and that's there are a lot of other things that we can talk, but yeah, it made me see a lot of different new perspectives in our lives.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree, no matter what profession you have, and that's right, and that's something that we've talked about. That we're actually very fortunate amongst many of our peers and colleagues of our age, that the two of us somehow managed to scrape through COVID solely on teaching and doing only things that were still music related. Like both of us were fortunate to not necessarily have to take a separate job, which is not the norm. I'm not really sure how that had happened.
Yeah, that's true.
We would constantly talk about how thankful we were for that, because yeah, it not only it allowed us to keep that love for music alive, but also I think changed our perspective a lot, like you were saying, and we both turned more towards our students and our studios. And I think we both found like a whole other side of ourselves as musicians and educators and what it means to be a leader for young students,
Oh
um,
yeah.
and a true support system for them. And that's a really good point. Um, Now, one this has nothing to do with maybe your individual experience, but something that we and our friends have talked about is like in the classical music genre in general, how much COVID has impacted the like digital aspect of how we share music and how much the quality has improved. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that because we've kind of discussed that several times, just the upgrade of everything we're seeing.
Yeah, it's totally true. And, as we all know, the in general, the level of classical music is thriving right now. And especially during the COVID, all of the kids just playing, better than I am right now. Like all of these prodigies, all of the kids, they were truly enjoying the COVID, and they were that's was the best of the music. Like we were inside, locked inside. And if you have your instrument, piano, violin, whatever, it doesn't matter, guitar, you can just really, really play around with it. And if you're stuck inside for 2 years, you can get very, very good at it. That's what I'm seeing right now. Like we both saw that we just were, seeing the competition Cremona and how much better all of the young generation musician got. It's unbelievable. And the way how they deliver this, the recordings that they make, it's basically you're going to the concert hall and you're sitting right next to the performer. The audio and video quality, everything now, it's just unbelievable. You can hear first class world musician basically from your living room playing for you, and basically even for free or for like just a little bit of money. And before the COVID, you need to spend a couple of $100 to go to the concert halls, to make a special trip. And now it's so affordable for all of the people. And I would just encourage the young musician generation to take advantage of this. I hope that it's gonna go a little, forever. Maybe not. Maybe it was something during the COVID, but it's still going on. But please, just take advantage of all of this recordings, and a lot of musicians out there made just tremendous and like unbelievable recordings that you can truly enjoy from your living room or from your office. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so true. I think everyone came out of the woodworks during COVID.
yeah,
But I think that, there are a lot of stereotypes about musicians, but I think for classical music in general, of course, popular mainstream music has always been very well documented, and there's millions, billions of dollars funneled into that industry to make sure they have amazing music videos, make sure they always look amazing, hair and makeup and everything.
yeah,
And people love that because it's fun and it's accessible, like you were saying. You feel like you're kind of there experiencing with them. You can watch their music video and you feel like you're up close and personal. And so I think that over COVID, that the classical music world kind of like caught up. And you're right, like even everyday musicians kind of felt the need to become their own like media managers in a way.
yeah,
And I think that's actually a positive thing because you know, if you go on social media, there are a lot of people now, sharing what they do, even if it's, something small practice videos, but doing it at a very accessible and high level, which is great. So of course that's, we could go on forever about all of these topics, but I wanted to thank you so much for all of your wonderful and insightful answers today to these questions. And please, anyone, if you have more questions that you would like to know from Lubomir, leave them in the comments below. and we can either do a follow-up video or I'll just be happy to share his answers with you. Now, before we go, I like to ask every guest in this series sort of the general question of, what in general, what does music mean to you in your life?
This question for me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was thinking that they're gonna answer this in the comments below. Sorry. Uh, that's a tough one. I guess since we're wrapping up, you decided to ask me the very challenging question. Uh, the music means everything for me. It's my soul. It's my daily life. It's my emotions. It's my privacy time. It's my intimate time. It's it's everything. Like for instance, if I have some complications, like or I'm feeling down, I can go and play Bach, and it kind of clear ups my brain. And there are a lot of things that I would like. I like actually doing it, and also the teaching young musicians. And when you're seeing just that your musician that your students are improving it and they're playing a concert after a couple of months, it's just you're so proud that, and you're there for them, and you're seeing that you can actually pass something that they can remember, and they can also make other people smile or transfer this emotion to other people. That's truly fascinating. And also as a performer, I love playing concerts, and I love sharing the stories with them about the pieces that I play for them. And that's something that I think is gonna stay with me forever. And I think with the music, we truly can change someone mood, or actually change someone, or not change. I wouldn't say change some mood is for sure, but inspired or make some other people feel happy or more positive, or just bring joy to their lives. So yeah, I'm fortunate to be a musician, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be at your channel today. And I would like to say to all of the young musicians and to the parents, just keep you know keep playing music, keep inspiring your kids, and be supportive to your kid. And doesn't matter if you don't want to be a professional musician, but just keep playing music, because in one day you will see how much joy and fun it can bring you in the longer run. And yeah, thank you so much again. It was a huge pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone where they can best find you or get in contact with you or ask you more questions if they would like?
Sure. I'm currently based in Boston, Massachusetts for the past couple of years. And if you would like to learn a little bit more about me, you can visit my website, and hopefully Maggie can just put it in the link down below or something. Yeah, and I would be happy to answer all your questions. You can just reach out to me using my website. And yeah, I try to keep my website refreshed with the concerts that I'm playing. So I would be more than happy to see you in the next concert that I will be playing for the real audience as well.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to show a quick clip from your
Oh, please. Oh, thank you so much. Thank
website,
you.
which is really wonderful. It showcases your studio. So
Oh, thank you so
and
There is no. Oh, I couldn't hear you. Sorry for like
oh,
for
okay,
like
thanks. I was just saying
yeah.
thank you for being here today, and it was really lovely getting to know you a little bit more. And we hope to see all of you guys in our next musician memoir series. So please tune in for the next one. And thank you again to LIUBOMYR SENYSHYN for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a
Bye.
pleasure.